It's very nice to be here again. The last time I was here, somebody said was 2019. Yeah, so we have PC and AC. Everything is delineated by COVID nowadays. Yeah. So we're going to be talking about the practice of white Tara, and then also looking at one, what do you call it? It's not exactly a poem, a request prayer to Tara that I wrote many years ago. I've been to Russia a couple of times to teach, and after one of the visits, one of the young Russian monks asked me to please write something that would give them kind of resilience and so on to go through what was happening with Putin. Okay, that was years ago what was happening with Putin. It has what changed for the worse now? Certainly not the better. But it's interesting because I read it again, a couple of weeks ago, and it like pertains to Trump too. So I was quite amazed that something that was written for one situation equally applies to another. Yeah. So you'll have to excuse me. Sometimes people think I talk about politics. Yeah, because I mentioned Donnie. Okay, I call him Donnie for a reason, to keep some feeling of endearment. Yeah. By the way, if anybody can't see me, please feel free to scoot your chair in the center or wherever you want. But I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about ethical conduct. And I use Donnie and now our second president, Elon, as very good examples when we talk about the afflictions and how the mental afflictions, that keep us in samsara, run our life and create havoc in society and create a lot of turmoil in us as individuals. Okay, so just remember that if I say something you don't like, just throw your tomatoes, in another direction. Yeah, although they kind of match, but this color, but yeah. Okay. So I always like to start things with a little bit of silent meditation and then generating our motivation and then getting into things. Yeah. Tonight, the topic that I think I'm supposed to talk about is the three principal aspects of the path, right? Okay. So I am definitely one of Sopa Rinpoche's students. And you can see it in that I seldom finish a text that I'm supposed to be teaching. Okay, you started. I'll try not to make the motivations for 3/4 of the talk. But yeah, I often don't finish text. So I was thinking that we will see how far we get tonight, and then maybe over the weekend I can finish, because especially the last verses that Tsongkhapa wrote about emptiness are quite profound. And if any of you have read, this is in volume 8, yeah, Realizing the Profound View, then those verses are quoted and explained some more. Do you have a copy of that book here? In case I use it. Otherwise, I do have it on the computer. Okay. Yeah. No, we can check later into. Okay. So while he's doing that, I should explain why I will not sit there. Okay. When I lived in Italy in the late 70s, the center had received it was Lama Tsongkhapa Institute, another FPMT center, and when their first resident Geshe came, and this was Geshe Thubten, who was also one of my teachers. And before he went to Italy, he lived up in the mountains above Dharamsala. How many of you have been to Dharamsala? Yeah. So in the mountains above, yeah, there was a community of meditators, and he was one of them, living in, houses made of bricks, and the floor was dirt floor and so on. He was a wonderful teacher. When you saw him in town or circumambulating His Holiness's stupa, he was totally unremarkable. He wore old robes, his socks were usually falling down, and his shoes were all beat up. Yeah, and a few whiskers. So you would just think some old monk. Well, when His Holiness received the request to send a Geshe to Italy, he asked Geshe Thubten to go. And I'm sure Geshe probably wanted to stay and retreat, but, His Holiness was his teacher, so he followed his teacher's instructions. He came to Italy. The center had a little villetta that was very nice, and they really spiffed it up to receive Geshe. But when Geshe sat down for lunch, his first meal there, they took out the china plates and the silverware, and he looked at that and he said, "Get rid of this and just bring me plastic plates." Yeah. When the people were like, "Okay, don't you like our fancy stuff?" Well, he obviously didn't. And then when he came into the meditation hall, there was a throne like this, probably a little bit higher with steps going up. And Geshe looked at it, and there was one thin cushion on top. And he picked up that cushion, threw it on the floor, and sat on that. So this was a wonderful teaching for me, And so if Geshe, one of my teachers, would not sit on a throne like that, then certainly I shouldn't. Okay. Yeah, there's amazing things when you watch and observe sometimes how people are, especially the lamas. You can really learn a lot about how they think and what their values are. Okay, so let's start with a few minutes of watching our breath, letting the mind settle down. And then I'll lead you in a meditation. Then we'll have the talk, and some questions afterwards or comments, and maybe answers. Okay. So the three principal aspects of the path are a condensation of the entire path. There's actually many ways to condense the entire path. This is one of them. But these are showing three principal aspects that we have to really focus on, without which we cannot attain full awakening, which is our goal. So he wrote this text, and one of his disciples requested Tsongkhapa to do it, and he did that. So we'll start at the three principal aspects. The first one is in here is translated as the determination to be free. It's also translated as renunciation. Okay, the in English, when we hear renunciation, it's like, ugh, austerity, giving up everything I like. No, that's not what we're renouncing. Yeah. It's not a determination to make us miserable. It's a determination to be free. Okay. What are we renouncing? Not happiness, but dukkha. Okay. Dukkha is a Sanskrit Pali word that's often translated as suffering, but that is a very bad translation because suffering in English, it doesn't fit the explanation of what dukkha is in Sanskrit, what it means in Sanskrit or Tibetan. So when I say dukkha, that's what I'm saying, okay? And so that's the first thing we have to do. We have to have some aspiration to be free of our present situation. Yeah. As long as we think our present situation is hunky-dory and, life is wonderful and we need to tweak it to make it a little bit better, but it's, there's happiness to be had. As long as we have that kind of attitude, then there's no intention, there's no motivation to change our situation. Yeah. So that's the first thing we have to do, have some, be able to see with clear eyes what our current situation is, and then have a determination to do something about it. The second one is Bodhicitta, the altruistic intention, aiming for full awakening, not so that we can be Buddhas and show off our powers to other people, not so that we can collect offerings. This is a pretty small offering bowl. Yeah, it's not an offering bowl, real. Yeah. So it's not so we can be somebody important. It's so that we can be of benefit to the world and to the beings in it. Yeah. But then to do that, we actually have to purify our mind of all the mental afflictions, the ignorance, anger, attachment, pride, jealousy, and so on, that usually run our lives. And we have to realize that our whole way of perceiving things, our whole way of grasping and understanding things is wrong. Okay? So we'll get into that when we get into the third principle. The third principle is the wisdom, realizing emptiness. Okay? Emptiness does not mean non-existence. Yeah, clearly we're all here tonight, I hope. Yeah. But it's empty of a certain type of existence. So we'll work on getting that. But the text starts out with, I bow down to the venerable spiritual masters. Okay, so that's the offering of praise that usually starts any text. Praising the Buddha, praising Manjushri, praising the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Okay. And so it's reminding us, I bow down to the Venerable Spiritual Masters, that what we're learning is something that started from the Buddha, and got taught the ideas in here. The text wasn't written by the Buddha. It was written by Tsongkhapa, who lived in the 14th, 15th century. And but the meaning was taught by the Buddha. It was passed down to his disciples, who passed it down to their disciples, and so on, up to the present day. So we see that it's something, these teachings that have been around for a long time. Somebody didn't make them up last week and put them in the New Age newspaper and say that you can have a free app. Well, not free, but an introductory app for only $99.99 for you, my special friend. So it's not a teaching like that. It's not something somebody's marketing to make money. It's not something somebody made up, okay? It's the Buddha. Whatever he taught is what he practiced. And so he attained awakening. So by teaching that, then we can see what the path is to practice. Yeah. Okay. And it also, by saying I bow down to the spiritual mentors, is reminding us that we need Dharma teachers. Yeah. I don't know about you, but I've observed a lot of people, and I did this to some extent before I met the Dharma, where you kind of cherry pick a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and mix it all together so that it comes out, so that it is perfectly pleasing to your ego. Yeah? All the things that you don't like, you leave aside, but you just pick out what you like. Yeah? That kind of path is not going to get us anywhere except into a state of confusion, because we need people who have actually practiced this path and attained the result, and Tsongkhapa is one of them, and then, pass it down and explain it to their students, who then explain it further. So it's a tried and true path, and that's important. If we need teachers to learn how to type, or if you need teachers who are of my age and you need to learn how to operate these new modern inconveniences that everybody walks around with like this, if you need teachers for that, then we certainly need teachers for things that are much more subtle and difficult, which is completely purifying our mind and generating all the virtuous qualities. Okay, so that first line reminds us of that. Let's not just kind of cherry pick and like that. That doesn't mean that we have to instantaneously accept and believe everything. In Buddhism, we're very much encouraged to think about things ourselves, to question, to investigate, to ask questions. Yeah. So it is not rude to ask questions. Some places I go, it's like people are like, I can't ask a question. That's so rude. Plus, if I ask a question, people will think it's a really dumb question and that I'm really dumb. So their attachment to reputation impedes them from actually learning by asking questions. Okay. So the first verse says, I I will explain as well as I am able the essence of all the teachings of the conqueror. The conqueror refers to the Buddha. The path praised by the conquerors and their spiritual children, the entrance for the fortunate ones who desire liberation. Okay, so they're called conquerors because they conquered the afflictions. Yeah, and they conquered all the even subtle defilements. Conquerors is in English we can use the word conqueror. We may not like it a whole lot, but it's okay. But in Mexico, you don't say conquistadores as something good. You know, the conquistadores you want to throw in the garbage. But, you know, that's how conquerors, the word conqueror translates into Spanish. Okay, so he says, I will explain as well as I am able. So he's being very humble, you know. He's not saying, I, the great and noble Tsongkhapa, and who will have a whole tradition that was founded in Tibet based on my teachings, you know. No, he's not saying that. He says, as well as I am able, I'm going to explain this. Very humble. Okay, the essence of all the teachings of the conqueror of the Buddha. So the essence, these three principal aspects of the path: the determination to be free, bodhicitta, and the correct view. Okay, the path praised by the conquerors and their spiritual children. Yeah, so this path was praised by the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. The Bodhisattvas are called the spiritual children because just as in regular life, at least more in ancient times, the children took over the business of the parents, you know? So here, the spiritual children, when they grow up and become Buddhas, then they will also join the family business of producing other Buddhas. Okay, yeah. And this is the entrance for the fortunate ones who desire liberation. So we are fortunate ones if we desire liberation. Okay? Now, there's a lot of other conditions we need besides the desire for liberation to be fortunate ones. But I think, you know, when I hear this, I think about the good conditions in my life, in our lives, to meet teachers, to have the texts, at least some of them in our own language, to learn, to have health and a clear mind in order to, you know, think and practice, and then to have the time to practice. Yeah. Oh, now everybody goes, time to practice. Okay. There are always 24 hours in a day. There's no day that is shorter than that. Okay. So why don't we have time to practice? What are we doing in those 24 hours? Okay, well, you sleep anywhere from 6 to 8 hours. Yeah. And it takes a little bit of time to eat and brush your teeth and things like that. And you gotta go to work. Ah, I hate work. Well, we have to learn to go to work with a good motivation. Yeah. Instead of, I mean, if you're spending many hours a day at your work and you hate it, what in the world are you doing? You know, quit and get a job that you like. Oh, quit? Then What happens if I won't get hired again? Then I'm going to be out on the street, one of those, people sitting there with their alms bowl, and that I'm going to be like them by Tuesday. Yeah. And we just get like, it's quite interesting, I find, you know. No, I think it's quite important that whatever work you do, you like it. You don't have to like it all the time, but that you like it and that you feel you're doing something useful for society, that you're not just passing time. Yeah, that your motivation is to contribute to the benefit of society, contribute to the benefit of your colleagues. Yeah. Wouldn't it be nice to go to work with that kind of motivation? I don't see a lot of people nodding their head. Yes. But think about it. Yeah. Because how you experience your job depends on your motivation. It depends on your perspective, how you look at things. Yeah. And if your attitude is, I don't want to be doing this, then for sure you're going to be miserable. Yeah. But if you can see, contributing some benefit to society, yeah, helping out your colleagues, doing something useful that benefits other people, imagine really before you get on the subway or however you get to work, cultivate that motivation. Yeah. And try and really day by day keep that in your mind. Okay. But if you really can't, then get a job that you like. Yeah. But you're going to say, but you don't know anything about how hard it is to get a job nowadays. You're right. Yeah. I don't know. I have been unemployed. On March 30th, I will have been unemployed for 48 years. Okay. And I haven't starved. Yeah. Why not? Because people are kind. Yeah. And because people see some value sometimes to what monastics are doing. Okay. So this is the entrance for the fortunate ones who desire liberation. What do we want liberation from? This cycle of existence that is operated or under the influence of our mental afflictions rooted in ignorance and the karma, the actions that we've done in our lives that influence what we're reborn as, what we experience in our life. Okay. So, and then so the essence of the teaching, of all teachings of the conquerors in that verse refers to renunciation or the determination to be free. The path praised by the conquerors and their spiritual children, that phrase in the verse refers to Bodhicitta. And the entrance for the fortunate one is who desire liberation, refers to the correct view of the nature of reality. That's the entrance for the fortunate ones to liberation. Next verse. Listen with clear minds, you fortunate ones, who direct your minds to the path pleasing to the Buddha, and strive to make good use of freedom and fortune without being attached to the joys of cyclic existence. Okay, so this verse is strong encouragement to pay attention, to study the text, to think about it afterwards, to put it into practice. Okay, so here when he says the path leading to the Buddha in the verse, it is it's referring to the entire path. Okay, listen with clear minds. That phrase means to listen with the proper attitude and paying attention properly. Yeah, they often talk of the three upside down, the three pots. Okay, pots. This kind of pot, not the other kind. And to listen with the three as the three pots. So the first pot is an upside down pot. Okay, can anything you pour some delicious drink in it? Is any of it going to go in? No, it's going to roll off the sides. So that's like somebody who comes to the teachings and they're totally distracted, they're bored, they're not paying attention. As my mother would say, it's going in one ear and out the other. Okay, so these people don't get very much from hearing a teaching. The second kind of pot is right side up, but there's a hole in the bottom. So you can pour the nectar in and then it runs out. Okay, so this is like somebody who comes and listens to teachings, they pay attention, but afterwards somebody says, "Oh, you went there. What did they talk about?" And you go, uh, uh, "Buddhism," because that's all you remember. Yeah, you're a leaky pot. Then the last kind of pot is right side up. It's not leaky, but it has junk inside. Yeah, it's polluted, maybe tar, who knows what is on the inside. So you pour the nectar in, but it gets mixed up with all this gunk. Yeah. So that's like somebody who comes to the teachings and they're full of their own ideas. Yeah. So much so that they can't listen with an open mind. Everything they hear, they're going, that doesn't match what I already believe, and that doesn't match what I believe, So somebody who has very strong opinions and is not really open to taking something in and thinking about it. Yeah. So we shouldn't listen like those three kinds of pots. We should listen sitting up straight. That got a reaction. Slump. With interest and paying attention. That's how we should listen. Then the phrase, the fortunate one who directs your mind. So those is referring hopefully to us. We have directed our mind to the Buddha's teachings. Yeah. And the phrase without being attached to the joys of cyclic existence is talking about renunciation, the determination to be free. Now, this one is difficult. Yeah, without being attached to the joys of cyclic existence. Yeah. When you wake up in the morning, what do you think about? Yeah. Yeah, what gets you out of bed in the morning? Breakfast. Yes. Oh, breakfast. Hot pancakes. Okay. Or whatever it is you like. Yeah. And so something that tastes good. Yeah. And you kind of hope it's Friday and it's payday. Yeah. So you get some money. Yeah. What are you going to do with the money? Yeah. Get things you like, isn't it? Yeah. Maybe pay your mortgage or your rent so that you have a nice place to live. And then there's the money that goes for the car payments and car insurance. And then you want to get different kind of clothes that are really nice and comfortable, that people will look at you and say, wow, you really look nice. And then you've got to go to the gym, that costs money. And yeah, and then you have to go to the latest plays. You live in New York, of course. So you have to go to plays and go to the cinema. And then you have to get the latest digital whatever, iPhone number 4316, because that's what all your friends have. And it's so cool. Yeah. So that you can reduce your entire life to something that is this big. Yeah. You can see what I think of iPhones or any phone. I have to confess, I am probably the only person on this planet who does not have a phone. Can you imagine living without your phone? Can you? When people come to the Abbey to stay, we want them to have a real experience of being there. So we ask them to give us their phones that we lock in a safe. And people look at us like, you want my phone? It's attached. I can't separate from my phone. Yeah. And they walk around with their phone all day. Yeah. Cross the street, holding their phone, reading whatever. Yeah. Yeah. Just look up from your own phone once in a while and you'll see that's what everybody else is doing. Okay. So there's all these, the joys of cyclic existence, all these things we like that please us, that we don't want to separate from. Yeah. Good food, nice things to see, a fantastic love affair, whatever it is that you crave. Lama Yeshe used to just use one word for that, chocolate. Yeah, because everybody likes chocolate, don't you? Don't you? Don't you? Yeah, come on. You can admit it. Yeah. So Lama would say, and so when I use the word chocolate, it means whatever object or person or situation that you cling to. Okay. We have a lot of clinging in our lives, don't we? Yeah. And a lot of wants. We have a few needs, but we have a whole lot of wants. I want this and I want that, not just material things. That's one object that, of our wants. Yeah. But we want approval from other people. We want praise. Yeah. Anybody here who doesn't like praise? Yeah. How about appreciation? We could all use a little bit more, couldn't we? Love. Couldn't we use some more? Yeah. Sometimes I've never looked at a dating app, but I read about what what people say. And they're always looking for love, as if love is a commodity. They're looking to receive love. They're not thinking about giving love. They're thinking about receiving love. Yeah. Then how about a good reputation? Anybody who doesn't want that? Yeah. And then nice sensory experiences. Whatever room you're in, it's got to be the right temperature. This is great when you do group retreats with people. One person wants to lower the temperature, somebody else wants to make the temperature higher. The cushion. Oh, trying to find a cushion you can sit on. Have you found the perfect meditation cushion? Really? Yeah? Is it going to work for everybody? No. Anyway, you won't give it to anybody because it's yours. Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't know. I've never found a perfect cushion. We want things that smell good. We want nice taste. Yeah. So, we're quite attached to the pleasures of samsara. So to go back to the question I asked you before, saying that there's 24 hours in a day and what are we doing with them? I think most of the time we're looking for pleasure. Yeah, from one thing or another. And then, of course, in the world and in our country, yeah, we're supposed to buy things. We have to be good consumers, don't we? And use more than our fair share of the world's resources. Yeah. And, be a patriotic American and spend money on pleasurable things. Right? Okay. So we're quite enveloped in the pleasures of samsara and looking for them and getting them takes a lot of time. Enjoying them takes time. Protecting them takes time. But after we enjoy them, what happens? You eat your chocolate, then what?
That's gone.
Gone. Yeah, it's totally gone. Yeah. But when you're craving chocolate, you've got to have chocolate. Whatever you're craving, especially food, I've got to have it. I need my chocolate. And then what we do to get our chocolate, and remember, I'm talking about any kind of thing that you're craving for, we do all sorts of things that are harmful, that come from a very greedy motivation to get what we want. Yeah. And so in the process of doing that, we are acting unethically and we are creating what is called negative karma. And who's going to experience the result of it? Us. Yeah. Some other people are affected by our negative actions. But in terms of the long-term result, and sometimes short-term result, we're the main recipient of the effects of our own actions. Mm-hmm. So we have to really sit and think about, how much of my life and energy is being directed towards seeking pleasure that doesn't last very long. and how much of my life is directed towards that pleasure, which doesn't last very long. And when it's gone, I'm left where I was before. Okay. And here I like to tell the story of one of my high school friends who really wanted a Porsche. Yeah, you're a high school guy, and you want a Porsche. And of course, his parents wouldn't get him a Porsche, but he wanted a Porsche. And all I heard about from him was, I want a Porsche, I want a Porsche, I want a Porsche, and he had the color, everything designed for the Porsche. Yeah. So eventually, he graduated, he went to work, he bought a Porsche. And then, he roared it down the street for a short period of time. And then it lost its glamour. Yeah. So how many things have we, really craved, thinking this will make me happy? And then we get it, and it's like a balloon that gets popped. Mhm. Okay. I'm not trying to make you depressed. Initially, it sounds depressing because we think this is the only happiness that is possible in our lives. We think sense pleasure happiness is the only kind of happiness to have. Yeah. And what the Buddha is saying is, if you look at your sense pleasure happiness, it really isn't happiness. It doesn't last a long time. And you have to work really hard to get it. And then you're dissatisfied. You get your Porsche and it just isn't as good as you thought it was going to be. And then somebody scratches it, and then it's 1 year goes by and you don't have the most modern Porsche. So is this real happiness? And what the Buddha is trying to say is there's another kind of happiness that doesn't depend on external objects. Yeah, because all this happiness we usually think of depends on external objects and people. And so we're always trying to arrange the outer world so that it conforms to what we want. And that's an impossible task. Yeah. But Buddha's saying, look inside. There's another kind of happiness that comes from changing your motivation, changing your perspective, purifying your mind of the craving and clinging attachment and greed. He says there's another kind of happiness, and that's what he says, I want to teach you. Okay. So Buddhism is not about making us suffer. Yeah, we do not need to learn how to do that. Yeah, suffering comes quite without us having to do much. Okay. But it's talking about really asking ourselves, what is happiness? And there's different kinds of happiness. And this happiness that doesn't depend on external things, how do I develop that? So, without being attached to the joys of cyclic existence, talking about renunciation of samsaric suffering, of samsaric dukkha. It's not saying renouncing happiness. Yeah, make good use of leisure and fortune. Refers to the bodhicitta, that altruistic intention, because, opening our heart to see the kindness of other sentient beings and cherishing them this is a very good use of the leisure and fortune that we have with having a perfect human life, a precious human life. Okay. And the path pleasing to the Buddha in that verse refers to the correct view of reality. Okay, we've done 2 verses. We are moving along. Okay, verse 3. For you embodied beings bound by the craving for existence, without the pure determination to be free, which means renunciation, without the pure determination to be free from the ocean of existence, there is no way for you to pacify the attraction to its pleasurable effects. Thus, from the outset, seek to generate the determination to be free. So now Tsongkhapa is going into the first of the 3 principal aspects of the path, the determination to be free. Okay, for you embodied beings bound by the craving for existence. We're embodied, aren't we? Yeah, we have this body. What does this body do? It moves, it eats, okay. It goes to the bathroom, it sleeps. Yeah. And then the fun part is, yeah, it gets born, it gets sick, it gets old, and then it dies, right? As soon as we take birth in this kind of body, we are in the process of aging and going towards death. Yeah. And then sickness, occurs sporadically. But even when you're not sick, is your body ever completely comfortable? Couldn't move around. This hurts, that hurts. Yeah. Okay. So this body that gets old and sick and dies, yeah, we spend an awful lot of time pampering it, don't we? Yeah. An awful lot of time trying to make it look glamorous. Yeah. I mean, we're in New York, the, glamour capital of the world. And we've got to look glamorous, like all those people who are the models in the magazines. Yeah. The women who wear as little as possible, and the men who are gagged up here with a suit and tie. Yeah. Great couple, huh? Yeah. One says, turn the aircon on, and the other one says, turn the heat up. Yeah. I wonder they don't get along. Okay. But we're quite attached to our body, aren't we? Yeah. Yeah. We care about how it looks. We care about its health. We care about its strength. We want, so much of our pleasure comes from the body. But what does the body do in return? It gets old and sick and dies. So here, what we're seeing is not just like, oh, well, give up, like go kill yourself today and, save the pain. No, we're not talking about that. We're saying that, again, the Buddha is saying there's an alternative to being born again and again and again in this kind of body. Yeah, there's upper realms of existence, kind of a heavenly, godlike realm. That's very pleasurable. But it too doesn't last long. Yeah. But when we can realize the ultimate nature of reality, when we can generate bodhicitta and really, purify our mind, then we get a body of light. Yeah. And when you have a body of light, you don't have to worry about how you look and, if your hair is the right color, and if you bulge where you should bulge and don't bulge where you shouldn't bulge, Okay, it's a body of light. So there's an alternative to this kind of body. Right now, we have this kind of body, and it's the foundation of what we call our precious human life, because with our current human life, we can learn the Dharma, practice it, attain liberation, attain full awakening. Now somebody's going to, why should I attain full awakening? Okay, imagine for a minute, let's think of the benefits of attaining liberation and full awakening. Okay, anybody here like to be angry? Anybody take, besides Donnie, like to be angry? Take great pleasure in being angry? Yeah, most people know being angry is miserable. Okay, when you attain liberation or awakening, no matter what happens, you don't get angry. People can call you every name in the book and every name that's not in the book, and you don't get bummed out. You don't feel insulted. People can disapprove of you. They can criticize you. You don't get upset. You don't get mad. Yeah, people could steal your stuff. It's okay. You don't get mad. Okay, wouldn't that be nice to be free of anger? What do you think? Yeah. And somebody's going to say, but I've got to be angry. They did something wrong. And I've got to be angry to let them know they cannot treat me like that. Well, what about if you weren't so attached to how people treat you? Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, people respect you, great. They don't respect you, also great. People praise you, that's nice. People don't, that's also okay. Yeah. But I want my chocolate. What about if you weren't always craving more and better, more and better, more and better? Yeah. I mean, that's kind of our mantra in America, isn't it? I want more and I want better. What about if your mind was satisfied? If your mind was content? If you had a sense of fulfillment in your heart? Yeah, would that be better? Yeah, so that with this body, yeah, then we can learn the path and practice the path and progress on it until we actually get that state of being. And once you get it, you don't lose it. Yeah? Whereas every nice thing we get in samsara, the cycle of existence, eventually we lose. Okay. So what the Buddha says is, there's everything that we think is so precious that will make us happy in this life, isn't really fulfilling our wish for joy. But there is an alternative. Yeah. And the alternative is much better. Yeah, I mean, really think about it. Wouldn't it be nice that no matter what somebody did, you didn't get offended and get furious? Yeah, I think that would be great. And whatever pleasure there was, your mind wasn't always more and better, more and better, more and better. You know, that there was contentment. Okay, so this life is, based on this human body. Okay, so it's a precious human life. But it's not just having a human body. We have certain conditions in our life. Yeah. And one of them is having human intelligence. Yeah. Human body, human intelligence. Yeah. Animals cannot practice the path. Yeah. At the Abbey, we have 4 cats. Yeah, the original residence of the Abbey when it begun was one nun, me, and 2 cats. We now have 22 monastics and 4 cats. Okay, our 4 cats are named after the 4 immeasurables. We use the Sanskrit name. Yeah, Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upekkha. Maitri means love, Karuna, compassion, Mudita, joy, and Upekkha, equanimity. Okay. We try and teach them the Dharma. Yeah. Especially, they like to go outside. Yeah. What do kitty cats like to do when they go outside in the countryside? Where's that mouse? Where's the vole? Where's the mole? I'll take something flying instead, a nice little bird, even a bug. Yeah. When we try and teach them, look, every living being cherishes their life as much as you cherish your life. Don't kill them. And our precious little kitties just look at us like that. Yeah, it doesn't go in. They don't have the human intelligence, the precious human life to understand that. Yeah. We also live in I used to say in a free country. Now I'm not so sure what direction we're going in. Okay. But, yeah, at least until now, we have some freedom. Yeah. One of my friends used to teach in the Soviet countries before perestroika. And he told me he was teaching in Prague, and to teach, everybody had to come separately. They couldn't come as a group because that would make, incite wonder about what is a group of people doing. And so they would come separately, go into somebody's home. In the front room of the home, they had a table and with cards, and they made it look like they were playing cards. Okay, the cards were all dealt out. They went into the back room and he gave teachings there. Yeah. If the police came, all they had to do was run into the room and sit around the card table, and the police wouldn't know that they were doing something awful, like talking about compassion or, this kind of Buddhist themes. Yeah. But so far, we have the freedom to gather, tonight and do that. That's very precious freedom that we shouldn't take for granted. Yeah. Okay. So, without the pure determination to be free from the ocean of existence, there is no way to pacify the attractions to its pleasurable effects. Yeah, because we see something pleasurable and like immediately we go towards it, you know. It's like bees with something sweet. Zoom, you know. Okay, so that is telling us why we need to develop the determination to be free. The next verse, okay, we'll do one more verse. By contemplating the freedoms and fortunes so difficult to find and the fleeting nature of your life, reverse the clinging to this life. By repeatedly contemplating the infallible effects of karma and the miseries of cyclic existence, reverse the clinging to future lives. Okay, so by contemplating our precious human life with freedoms and fortunes, which is difficult to find. Not every human life is a precious human life with the ability to, meet the Dharma and practice the Dharma. So many people on this planet have hindrances, sometimes illness, sometimes poverty, sometimes their minds are filled with all sorts of other ideas. Sometimes they were told as kids, given a certain philosophy, and you've got to follow this or else. Yeah, so their minds aren't free. But we're free right now. And so to really cherish that, and especially a part of ourself that we often overlook, that it's very important to cherish, which is our spiritual interest and our spiritual longing. Yeah, this is one aspect of ourself that is very important that we can't talk about with everybody. Yeah, only certain people really understand our spiritual search, our spiritual interest. So it's something important in us that we should really respect, not overlook, not trivialize, but respect in us. Okay, so without the pure determination to be free from the ocean of existence, meaning samsara, this thing of born again and again and again and again and again, beginninglessly, endlessly, until we practice, then it can have an end. Yeah. So we need that determination to free ourselves in order, to get out. And as long as our minds are totally preoccupied by the things, the pleasures of this life, then our whole life goes by, without really learning and integrating the teachings in our hearts. Okay, how do we overcome this? By repeatedly contemplating the infallible effects of karma and the miseries of cyclic existence. Reverse the clinging to future lives. So that first sentence was talking about reversing the clinging to this life, the pleasures we have in this life. But by thinking about karma and thinking about the defects of cyclic existence, then we can reverse the clinging to future lives. Okay. Because what happens at the time when we die? Okay. Our body and our mind are separating. Yeah. The body has one continuum. Yeah. The mind, which is clear and cognizant, has another continuum. Body gets recycled in nature. The worms have a good lunch. The consciousness goes on to another life. Okay. What life we take depends on our karma. So karma refers to our actions of body, speech, and mind. Yeah. So what we think about, what we say, how we say it, and what we do. And so this is a call to start paying attention to what we think and what we say and what we do, because all of these are actions of body, speech, mind, and they leave a trace in our mind stream called a karmic seed. And then when those karmic seeds ripen, they throw us or make us attracted into a certain kind of life. Yeah. If we have a ton of negative karma, and that is what ripens in our life, then we can be born into an unfortunate realm where there, is a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, the hungry ghost realm, the animal realm. I noticed a coffee shop down the road called the Hungry Ghost Coffee. I thought, that's not too auspicious. Who wants to be a hungry ghost drinking coffee? Um, yeah. If we have virtuous karma, then we can have a fortunate life, as a human being, yeah, and in one of the heavenly realms. And there's lots of descriptions about those where in one of them, you have every sense pleasure possible until you die. And then you're separating from all of it and you freak out. Yeah. But here we're talking about not just being born in a better realm in samsara, yeah, but the determination to be free is seeking liberation, full awakening, some other state of being, not just so that we can have happiness, but so that we can really work for the benefit of others. Yeah. And this is why His Holiness the Dalai Lama talks so much about compassion, which we will get into tomorrow. Okay. We have a couple minutes for questions, maybe answers. Yeah. Don't fall asleep quite yet. Yes.
I was just wondering how we would rationalize the part of love, like romantic love or familial love, that can sometimes lead to clinging or attachment. Like, it seems difficult to have one without the other a little bit.
Yeah. Often what we call love in this culture refers to romantic love. Yeah. Is romantic love completely satisfying? When you first fall in love, wow, you are over the moon. It is fantastic. You're in heaven. Finally you found the perfect person and it's wonderful. And then what happens? Yeah. Yeah. Do you know anybody who has a perfect marriage? No. Yeah. So why is that? Well, because what we often call love is very mixed in with, is romantic love is very mixed in with attachment. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, do you fall in love with a person you can't stand? No. It's like the person who was nice to you, who thinks you're wonderful, who appreciates you, who will encourage you when other people criticize you, will stick up for you, will always tell you how attractive you are, that you're the best thing since ice cream. And that's what we fall in love with, right? Is that person always like that? No. Are you always like that? Oh, we get in bad moods, don't we? And who do we get the angriest at? Yeah, the people we love or strangers.
So with that in mind,
Now, answer the question.
well, I'm just wondering, like, does that mean that that form of love is something to be renounced, or is there more of a middle way?
I think the less attachment we have, the better the relationship will be. But the more attachment we have, yeah, the more opportunity it is for that person not to fulfill what we want. Yeah, because, okay, you're going to get me talking about romantic relationships now. You asked for it. I was married before I became a nun, so I know what it's like. I'm married for a very, very nice man, and we separated because I ordained. Yeah. But you're just over the moon, like this person is wonderful. And are they that wonderful? Yeah. Don't they get old and sick and die?
Yeah.
Yeah. When they're young, they're really good looking. What happens?
Age.
Are they good looking when they get old? Yeah. Somebody took out a picture of me with Kyunglam Rinpoche today when I was young, and they all like, ooh, yeah. I'm like, look at me now. Yeah. Wrinkles. Yeah. Gray hair. I don't bother dyeing it. I just cut it all off. Yeah. And, then this hurts and that hurts and the other thing hurts. Yeah. You can't go out, doing what you wanted to do before. Anyway, who likes going to the bar and getting drunk? It seems like that's how romantic relationships begin. At least when I read the New York Times and they talk about the people who are getting married, they always meet and go for drinks. Yeah. What kind of person are you getting? Uh, or meeting when they're a little bit tipsy. And how about when they get super tipsy? And how about if they drink and drug at the same time? And how about, if they can't go to work and they ask you to call in sick for them so that you start enabling them? Then what?
It's not good.
Yeah, not so good. But my relationship is going to be different. Yeah, it's different. Yes, I know he has a temper, but his temper is always directed at somebody else. It's never directed at me. And even if it is, we can sit down and talk and we can work it out. Yeah, we will be the perfect couple. Okay, how many of you are married presently? Okay, how many of you who are divorced? Yeah. When you got married, did you expect to be divorced?
Yes.
Really? From now until I'm fed up with you. Yeah. So I think, you like I said, the less attachment you have, the fewer rules of the universe you have that the other person has to fulfill. And never mind the fact that he has his rules of the universe that he expects you to fulfill, but he's never told you all of them until you don't do that. And then he lets you know that you're supposed to do X, Y, and Z.
Thank you.
Oh, you don't want me to continue?
Thank you for teaching us. My question was just around when like pleasures appear and the mind just goes more and better, more and better. It's actually quite frustrating.
Isn't it?
Like, yeah, it happens out of the blue. Like you're like focusing on something and then out of the blue, the mind's like, oh, what is this shiny object? I wonder like what you suggest to like cut that mind and like, you know, move to like, I guess, a little more.
Okay, so instead of always saying another shiny object, that's better, and yeah, do realize, you know, to pay attention to how your mind is looking at these things and how you're projecting good qualities that aren't there or exaggerating good qualities that are there, and then thinking that the object is always going to be like that, and thinking that it's going to bring you real happiness. So we, you know, have wrong expectations. Yeah. My friend who got the Porsche thought it was going to make him forever happy. Yeah, he didn't, you know, very short-sighted and not thinking in the long term that, oh yeah, like everything else that's new and shiny, I'm going to lose interest after a while. So I don't need to, you know, get so preoccupied about having more and better and more and better. I can be satisfied with what I have. Cultivating satisfaction, which is a very rare thing in modern society. Yeah. Okay. So our time is up. Oh, I can't go on more about. No, tomorrow I've mentioned our our rules of the universe, you know, and how they, just briefly, I'll get into that tomorrow. Yeah, we have all sorts of rules of the universe that we're aware of, and some we're not unaware of. Yeah. Okay. But until tomorrow. So we, you know, really rejoice that we had the time to spend together this evening, thinking about something, having our buttons pushed. Yeah, were your buttons pushed? Good, that's my job. Yeah. You know, if you came out of here just like light and love and bliss, you know, I wouldn't be doing my job very well. Yeah, because I'd be deceiving you. Yeah. So I'm trying to say we have to look at our present situation and know there is a better alternative. Yeah. And what we're going to get into is the alternative.